clock just to make sure we don't take too much of your time. Good morning. It's a real quick funny story. So last year was the first time I attended this event as a guest of a friend and colleague here. And we said at the end, he goes, wouldn't it be cool if we could present at this someday? And I said, yeah, someday. And so what I learned about Michael is he gets stuff done, because here we are with a topic to talk about. So we're going to go through, our title is Empowering Eaton, Cultivating Data Literacy for Proactive Emergency Communication Solutions. Quick thanks for the intro. We don't have to talk much. I will say my title did change recently, too recent to change anything in the program, so we just did it here. But I'm now a business intelligence team leader within the marketing function at Eaton. Michael, we heard his fantastic introduction.
Why is the comms guy up here?
Yeah.
That's what's everyone's on their mind.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and Michael described it well earlier, actually, at the table. He is definitely the why in this, and I was the how, as he just rambled great ideas at me, and we had to figure it out.
We will definitely show you how, the sum is greater than the parts when you have diverse backgrounds, skills, and a shared vision, and how that can come to life. But before we get started, so we're from Eaton. Who's Eaton? Raise your hands if you know who the Eaton Corporation is. Wow, it's more hands than we normally get.
Excellent.
So Eaton, we jokingly say we're one of the biggest companies you've never heard of. If you drove here in a car, truck, van, public transportation, there's Eaton parts powering those vehicles. If you flew here, Eaton parts powering those airplanes. Probably the power in this building is powered by Eaton parts. So we are a power management company that helps make power happen. And while that is a simple definition, now throw in technology, AI, machine learning, and it's a really fun space to be in. 23 billion in sales, and one of the best parts is we're in over 170 countries with just over 700 locations. So our headquarters is in Dublin, Ireland. Our US headquarters is here in Cleveland. And then we have regional headquarters around the world. And Eaton is continually growing in all of the up-and-coming markets and our current markets.
All right, so in keeping with the theme of today's summit, what prompted the need for data literacy? I'll let Michael tell this story as it's pretty personal to him and the journey that we went through.
So let's see, we started about 2 years ago. We had a system. This process was rooted in quickly escalating a emergency situation at one of our sites. This is very timely because Brandon told his story about a year ago being here. Well, I was just in Florida, and I don't know if you know what's happening in Florida. I was able to fly out, so I made it here early. But that's been kind of our life the last 48 hours of how are we using our system, our tool, our data to keep our sites safe, our employees safe, keep business operations running, even informing the locations that aren't in the path of the storm of what's going on, because they may be dependent on some of the things that we're producing in some of these locations that are out of power, not underwater, but you getting hit and people not being able to go to work. So we were able to, 2 years ago, we needed to update our systems. It was dated, and we needed it to be more for what we needed in today's business world.
So at the heart of this, the biggest issue, right? We're in over 130 countries. I think it was 170 actually. So we have 700 plus locations globally. We have over 94,000 employees, and all of this leads to over 1,000 potential emergencies every year, right? So Michael and his team, they tackled the problem of an outdated system by getting a new system, but now we had lots of information, right? Lots of data, lots of things coming in and out of this system, and we didn't have an easy place to manage it all, to draw real insights, to get any value of the actual data that was being produced. And so to paint the picture a little bit, so it started, we had this great third-party communications tool, right? It's called OnSolve. It was sort of at the center of everything. We were dumping into it people information, right? All of our employees, their locations, emergency contact information. We were dumping into it location information, every Eaton site, the address, who was there, who was not there. Within the tool, there was really good information like global risks, right? What are happening in real world places in real time, and then the ability to send, alerts to locations, to employees. So those are obviously not connected. They were in the tool, not something we were putting in, but it's more data points. The struggle, the roadblock though, was we couldn't easily get anything out of the tool for insights. Simple questions like, hey, how many of our sites are set up and ready to go with communication emergencies? We couldn't answer that just based on the tool, or it was very difficult to get to. So Michael took on the challenge of trying to find the solution. I did not work for Michael. I worked actually for a colleague of his, and sort of my name was come up as hey, this is somebody that might be able to help you.
He regrets it every day.
Every day.
His name.
It's been so much work, everybody. But so we had to come up with a solution, right? And obviously, with my background, the first thing I thought, well, we need a dashboard, right? We need some reports. We need a place for all this to live, to pull those insights. And so that sort of became the center of everything. So now we are putting that people information not only into the tool, but into the dashboard. Same thing, location. We could now pull out risks, global risks from, well, this one's, I guess, still in the works. But we can pull global risks out of the tool and put it in the dashboard. All of the alerts that we're sending can go into this dashboard. So now the communication tool isn't the center, but it's a piece of this entire ecosystem that lets us finally pull out real insights into simple questions like how many sites are set up, how many employees are, in our terms, emergency ready. They have a contact, an emergency contact information that we can reach them with. And so this was the solution. It looks nice and simple here, right? Every time it does, but you'll see it took a lot of work and some consistent teamwork and collaboration.
Yeah, and not only from the operations side. I mean, we all have to report up to senior leaders, executives. They're not in the minutia. They're not, going to go into a system and pull reports themselves. And how do you take that snapshot, that very quick ability to show that we've got 97% of all of our sites are currently at this level, or we have 70% of all locations are at this level. And I know you really want to know about our aerospace sites. Here's some very high-level information quickly pulled, because this dashboard is pulling all that information from multiple systems and helping us have those insights. Another piece that we, when we were onboarding the system, we had a goal of 100% adoption from all of our sites, and that is a staff that's trained and ready to operate and jump into the process to respond to an emergency. We were looking at the data and we're like, we're stuck at this 50%. Why are we stuck here? What is happening here? We just can't get over this threshold. So then we went in the dashboard, looked at the data, and saw that for sites that were under 11 people, that was a different type of site, and there wasn't really a need for a big system like this because they're probably all on a text chain, or it's a sales site, or it's just a address that people have that they get their field reps, those sort of things. And when we made that change and it was able to separate into a major site and minor site, we were able to focus on the sites that were most impactful and then get to really focus on the sites that were needed and not be pushed in a direction where we would have just been spinning our wheels trying to achieve something that didn't need to be achieved. So we're wasting our time, we're wasting our efforts, and not spending the time on the sites that are truly impactful to our business.
Yeah, that was good. So This is a really good example of data literacy, right? This is the theme of the topic. When we were preparing for this, we sort of went back and forth a little bit on the star of the show. Is it the dashboard? I've sort of argued it's Michael and his team and how they embraced data and asked questions early and changed how they thought about data and the tools. And that's a really good example of it. So I think I was right in the end.
And
But
it's also really important, today in our work environment, today's work is changing. Technology is driving everything. I don't know what that digital transformation is taking place at your sites or at your locations or in your businesses, or as you're preparing to enter the professional world. The speed, the rate, the ease of doing things is faster than ever. Data is being provided by some of these kind of ordinary tools that we think of, they're at the level of email. Everyone uses email. All these tools, and that literacy of data has to be on par. And there is definitely a challenge in that with not having to know how everything works from a non-data field, but how to embrace it, how to work with it, how to partner. Know that it needs to be part of the equation.
yeah, a really great point. So, so we've sort of given you the story, we've given you the background. The real, I think, exciting part of the presentation is, we kind of just want to take you there and show it to you, right? And give you some perspective on the report, the dashboard, both from the analyst sort of view for our students, so how the build went, what's important to me as an analyst, and then from Michael as sort of the customer, what's important to him, and most likely I'll just ask you questions and put you on the spot a little bit. But just like anything, right? We had to start from somewhere, right? So I just kind of wanted to share the screenshot of the very first version, right? Iteration 1. You can see at the bottom if you're familiar with Power BI, the pages are at the bottom. So it was sort of just 2 pages, right? It was the report itself, and then I had an information page, because analysts, you should always put some information on what people are looking at. So take that away today. So first version, right? We had Eaton sites on one side, how many total, how many are active, meaning they're trained and ready to send emergency communications. We had non-active sites, there's that percent. And then we had people analytics. How many people at Eaton are ready to receive emergency communications? Are they emergency ready? How many aren't? And then that percent. So you see there was a lot of work to do. And there's a few breakdowns at the top, actual Eaton sites. We obviously have a lot of remote workers at Eaton, so we did want to know folks that are at home, are they at least emergency ready? So we pulled that out separately. And then the map was just hey, it's quick and easy to sort of see. Green is good, red is bad, and then a table at the bottom. So this was the very first iteration. It answered all of those early questions, right? It was quick to get to. We were able to work together and produce this fairly quickly, but as you'll see in a moment, it's changed a lot. But before we transition to that, Michael, real quick, what did just this mean to you and your team, just getting this first version up?
This was extremely helpful in helping us take a very high-level snapshot of where we were as far as the percentages, the numbers, and have a way to track it. Because we were doing a lot of efforts to raise the site adoption, to raise the employee adoption. And the tool itself wasn't giving us that. And we needed, we were originally using like Excel spreadsheets, and yeah, I'll end that there. So this gave us that, and I guess I gave us too much credit for that first rollout. We got stuck at like 45%. Like, why are we stuck here? We're doing all these emails, all these calls, all these trainings. Why are we stuck at 45%? So that was the first, helping us, I guess, understand how and why we were not where we were, how we were failing, and gave us that first point to then start asking questions of, well, why? So now what do we need to do? Brandon, let's look at the data and see, how do we get past this? What can we learn from this?
Yeah, great. Before we transition to line down, one more thing. So that table at the bottom, it's a little hard to see, but I'm a very firm believer that these sort of reports, dashboards are really good for giving you information, but they also need to give you an action, right? So for our analysts, you have to have sort of a go get. This table provided that. You could filter to just non-active sites, get that list of what those sites are so someone can go do work. Okay, now we have to get these sites online. So that was really important to me to have a place where, cool, then the numbers are good. We know we're failing, but now what? Well, here's how you get to the work that needs to be done. So that was that table in this case. So we'll switch over to the live version. Ooh, look how smooth that was. So now here's the live version. Pretty different. Right now we're on the home page. So from the analyst perspective, right, this is all about user experience. Somebody arrives here, you have a place that sort of welcomes them, they know what they're getting into. We've done things like split the actual on-solve adoption at sites. The people analytics are different. We've now added the alerts, so what sort of messages are we sending within the system? We're working on what are global risks that affect us, but each of these areas then have a short description. Again, from analyst point of view, this is a quick, easy way for someone to, we sort of expect this now, right? A home page in any sort of system we're interacting with. So this gives everybody sort of that safe space. If they get lost within the dashboard, they can pretty quickly come back here.
And as Brandon said, the user interface, the ease of use. We rolled that first dashboard out to all of our global admins. We have about 1,700, and that data literacy, that even the technology literacy was all over the board. So, how do we make it as easy as possible for someone to get what they need? And that was, constant feedback from them, like, what was not working? Why can't you find this? And we then took a step back and did looking at, what troubles they were having. We did some 5 whys, we did some fishbone analysis, and got to some of the things. And through the needs and wants of the actual people on the ground, like one of the biggest ads, and this was completely driven by them, is you show me how to get to my individual site page. I never remember how to get there. Can you make that easier? Absolutely. So we know that's a key want. So that is built into the homepage. So now they can type in their specific site, and it takes them right to their own site page. So for that user who doesn't care about anything else, all I want to see is my site. That was key for them.
Yep, and we'll visit that site details page here shortly. So let's just click on the on-solve adoption. So you'll see how this changed. Again, we took out the people analytics, right? It's really important information, but there was enough of it that it now sort of became a separate page in this report. Here we're focused only on site adoption. Across the top, you'll see what Michael spoke about. We had major sites, so locations with more than 10 employees. We now have minor sites, and then you can see the full snapshot. Same breakdown in terms of how many are active, how many are non, that percent, and then we started to care not so much about the actual location, so the map was cool, but not, there wasn't a lot of value in it for the users, so it turned into, well, how's this break down by region, how's this break down by our sectors, and then again, that table. So everything can be filtered for a pretty quick snapshot of, here's my business, here's my locations that I care about, whatever it is. You can get that table and pretty quickly understand, are they active, who's that site champion, but more importantly, are they not active? So we have an action plan, something to go get. Michael, thoughts from your perspective?
Again, another learning that came to life was we were solving for the global team, we were solving for the sites. Now those regional teams or the business teams, they wanted to know, okay, I'm in EMEA, how many of my sites in EMEA are not ready? Or are any of my, that number 8, are any of those 8s my site? Same then, with the businesses. Now it's a global, and you're pulling now just the business sites. So because of this, we were able to quickly grab that snapshot and show all the data and cut the pie the way we needed to do it with, in under a minute, and get to them so that they could see and then take action. It also helped bring to light, we're a big company. You saw the number of sites. I ask them to email me whenever they're going to open or close the site, but they don't. But this was a way for us to discover on our own that if a site now, if that number 8 jumps up to 9, or there's a number there, we can look into it proactively. We don't need to wait to discover that a site was added or a site was closed. We can ask those questions because the system, where it's giving us a way to kind of check the health on our own and not be dependent.
Which is another really good advancement in their data literacy, right? They're using the data to sort of start their thinking and how they work. And then one more thing from an analyst point of view, just a user experience, right? There's a bunch of terms on here that somebody might not know. So analysts, is there a way we can make this a little bit simpler, right? Here's some key definitions for this page that are important in a nice little pop-up. So things to think about. Always think about, it's easy to get lost where you're in the data every day, you understand it really well. Can you put yourself in the shoes of somebody that's just showing up and maybe hasn't looked at it, doesn't know what they're looking for? You have to think about that user experience. So in the people analytics, you'll see much of the same, right, from our first iteration. So how many employees, how many are emergency ready, meaning they have any emergency field completed. So for us, that's an emergency email, an emergency phone number, cell phone number, home number, whatever it is. As long as they have one of those, we consider them emergency ready. But we also want to know the breakdown, right? So you see those numbers in who's emergency ready. You can see, again, the breakdown by every site type, and then our sectors, and then which fields are completed. And again, do we have some actions that we can go take, key definitions. Michael, from your perspective, the sites are obviously really important, but if we have every site at Eaton set up and ready for emergencies, but nobody's ready to receive them, what does this mean for you?
It's kind of like I like desserts, like having a pie half baked and trying to eat it. It's kind of okay, but not really what you want. So this helped us, I'll ask you all a question. Who at your company and your site, your data quality is 100% perfect in every way, right structure, format, consistent in all of your systems? Yeah. All right, one hand, great. You win, because we all fail. This was something that, again, we don't live in the employee data world until now. And this brought to life, again, why are we stuck here? And gave us the path to start looking. And so we started looking at the actual people at the sites and the data that they're pulling in, and then realized, okay, well, there's some things that have to be fixed. The way that a couple systems push in, it's not consistent. So now we have a way to proactively go after and try to change or fix. I'm a big believer in fix the source. If you can't fix the source, how do you fix at the next level so that you're not constantly trying to chase something you'll never catch? But then it also exposed the process of how an employee goes and updates their personal information at a site. So if you have 2,000 employees at a site, and these are what we call unconnected. They don't sit behind a computer. There's maybe 5 kiosks, and they are asked to go in and update these particular new data fields, because that's another nice little piece I forgot. These are all brand new data fields for GDPR and other requirements. So building at the most restrictive structure to go do this. So then we were able to realize, okay, we can, again, send out as many emails, ask HR to, please, can you help? So we created a workaround, another system that feeds into a data set that we own that now we're updating into the master system, but it's a global QR code that employees can just go scan, update their information, and kind of bypassed a standard system. Again, works for some things. It's been around for a while, but wasn't at the speed or quality that we needed for today's world. So because of that, we were able to not even, wasn't even just the data part, but looking at the process of how even the data is going in and attack it there, and not hope that this would work without that change.
Good. All right. So one of two last quick sections to go through. So the alert. So this is sort of the latest addition, right? So we talked about the OnSolve system is to send emergency communications. Obviously, we're curious about what's going on there. So pulling from the system is a challenge. I'd be remiss not to talk about, the data model in the background. There's a lot of still what gives analysts sort of an ice cream headache is there's still quite a bit of manual work to do, which is okay because we have a very smart, active team that knows what they're doing now and can do that pretty efficiently. But future state, we want to automate this as much as possible. But so now we can have a snapshot of alerts. How many alerts are we sending? Where are they coming from? What type of alerts are they? Which locations are sending the most alerts? We're now using this and building sort of an auditing system. Did you send the right type of alert? Is there a training issue we have to go fix? And so understanding how the tool is being used, obviously really, really important. So we're sort of moved on this phase of let's know how many sites, let's know how many people are ready, how's the tool being used? And so this is sort of where we're at now in addition to what global risks, and that's a whole nother, that's probably next year's topic at this point.
Yeah. I mean, this section also, we had standard categories. We brought those to life, but then we had to solve certain problems. We had to see, like Brandon said, how many of what's coming out of a site, how many of these emergency alerts that we want to be 100% accurate because it's an emergency are not right, and what's not right about them. So kind of pulling those out without disrupting those categories that they fall into, but then again, making it actionable, then going back to those individual sites with here's what you did wrong, here's what you did right, and then also being able to track it now so we can keep track of, maybe we had 10% wrong. Okay, then next quarter we're at 7% wrong, and then so we can see that, where we need to get to, we want to have a 100% accuracy. I'd be happy with 99, but are we able to tell that story? And those are the things that a lot of the senior leaders, they want to know, okay, don't tell me, just give me data. It's, okay, great, you did 1,000 alerts this year. Is that good? Is that bad? How many were right? How many were wrong? What categories we're in? And then we actually even take this back to the sites and say, and give this to our EHS teams or our business continuity teams and say, site A, their top 3 threats are power outages, which is funny for a power management company, power outages, weather, and fire. Are you prepared to take these things on? And if you're not, get prepared. And then we can continue to track and see, okay, are they now dropping over time? So now something that was originally scoped as just solving a call-in, replacing a call-in number for an emergency to escalate to activate teams is now being used by business continuity, cybersecurity, IT as a whole, employee health and safety, global communications. The sites are using it on site for their quick response teams because it tracks, again, accuracy, speed, all those things that are required if there's a supply chain issue or even a quality issue. They're using this now. So we're seeing broad adoption well beyond what we planned it to do. And we're really excited about that. And the dashboard and being able to pull all this data, ask questions, get insights, take action on those insights, and then adopt that agile mentality and do it again and do it again and do it again has made this a very powerful tool and keeps us very busy.
And then last, real quick to just go through, so Michael mentioned at the beginning, some folks at Eaton, they only care about their location, right? So having an easy way for them to get to details about their location where they can see their specific alerts, quantity over time, right? How many employees are dedicated to that location, and how many are emergency ready? So another, way to find new work to do. And then who are the important roles at this location, right? So they can sort of get names and contact information pretty quickly about all the roles. So lots of people only care about this. They don't care about the overarching metrics. Totally fine. But again, as an analyst, you want to give them an easy way to get there and share that information.
And this was really important. This upper right-hand corner, the roles. With the storm that just came in, the head of security that I was with down in Florida at this risk and security conference. Again, these things, you can't make these things up. We're in a booth, it's happening, and he's like, hey, we need to notify all the sites. Like, great, yeah, no problem. So we draw our map, we use the tool to get all the information of number of sites, number of impacted employee, what path the storm is taking, make sure that the alerts are going out to each of the sites so they know they're getting updates that this is coming, this is coming. He said, well, what about like the EHS team? Is there a way for us to specifically easily pick out those names of those people for each of those sites? Like, yeah, I pulled it into the dashboard. Well, can I get it anywhere else? Nope. I'm sure it lives on an Excel spreadsheet somewhere in someone's computer, or you can go into our main database, but it's not something that's ever been really used. But again, we're building for the future. So I know that as these functions come on, they're going to want to be able to have ease of things they don't currently have now. So again, I guess that's part of the both of our roles is what can be done now, what do you think should be done, and how do you, as you're building these things out, start thinking about, well, if they ask me that, if they ask me that, if they ask me that, have I created the foundation to easily now surface that data in an easy way, in a visual way, and then be able to take action or to use it? Because if it's can't use it, you can't take action, maybe this isn't the right way to go. And that's also something that we've discussed with other projects. It's like, nope, this is not something we're spend time on because it doesn't necessitate this sort of investment. But yeah, very, very powerful tool.
This one. So we'll go to questions here in a minute. I just want real quick to, these were just all, in case I didn't have internet, so we'll just skip through these. Oops.
Again, backup plan.
Your backup plan. Yeah, worked out. So from sort of the analyst perspective, because I think it's nice to share both sides of this, analysts and the business. A big thank you to Michael and his team because they embraced this early. So in the early stages, they sort of had the questions, and I provide some answers. And in those early days, you say, well, you ask, as the analyst, you ask questions, right? Well, what about this? Do you care about this? Do you think about this? And over time, that has really transitioned because Michael and his team have their data literacy, their data journey has grown. And so now they're coming to me with, well, can we see this? Can we do that? And that's sort of what you want, right? You don't want to have to always, as the analyst, be giving the questions. He's the expert in the field, so for him to come to me with questions and me be able to go, oh, that's a pretty good idea, and then look at the data and see if we can answer it has been a really great journey. So thank you for embracing it and your team for embracing it, because it's actually the more work I'm doing now with the team, it is a little bit easier because they've really started to think about it from the right perspective to make my life a little easier to do those things.
My pleasure. And again, this is two sides of a coin. It's like I said at the very beginning, the sum is greater than the parts. We wouldn't have been able to get here without Brandon being open to the countless, what we call cave drawing sessions on the whiteboard in conference rooms of you're trying to connect things, and then his skill to make it easy for the team and to bring it to life. So he didn't speak in jargon or kind of overcomplicate things. He made it simple for the team so it wasn't as scary or as difficult to try to understand, because from comms people at all levels, there's a reason a lot of people go into comms, because the cave drawing sessions frighten them. They don't understand the connections. They don't understand data and why does it have to be that way. Can I just type into the AI and say, I want this, I want this, I want this, and then it spits it out? Maybe someday, but probably not in our lifetimes, what you're asking. But so this has been definitely a true example of the team and the team making it work.
Good.
Questions?
If there's none, that means we did well.
In the green? Oh, okay. 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 If you get a microphone, stand up. Microphone up and ask your question.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Good.
Morning.
Super. So, seeing and hearing the complexity of the dashboard that you wanted to create for your company and implementing it into the system for your employees, what would you say some of your key performance indicators or KPIs were in the beginning for kind of assessing the system and implement it to be actionable?
Great question. Great question. We definitely did not plan to boil the ocean, even though the original ask was, we want these 12 things. Can you bring them all to life? Well, let's start with one. Got to get the sites up. Got the sites up and ready. Then we'll look at employees. So we definitely had stages that had to get done first, and we did not try to solve everything all at once. And while we showed you like the first iteration and then the current, I think there was like maybe 4 or 5 iterations in between there as we learned, got feedback, things that were working, things that were. The dynamic of the project had changed as well. As we learned more, we then changed with the dashboard. So it was the basic KPIs are always there. Some of those KPIs are consistent. The dashboard helps us do it, but the feeders of the KPI, those are now changing a bit as we progress, and even as technologies is changing within our own 4 walls.
And I would say, from the analyst and developer point of view, it's really important to try to think as far into the future as you can, right? It's easy to build a data model and some tables and get stuck there because you weren't keeping it as open as possible. So some of that was just me asking questions early of Michael where he says, well, this is what we want to solve for, and say, okay, is there a day where you might want to solve for this? And he goes, oh, well, maybe. And I said, okay, I have to plan that in how I'm structuring the data model and how we're looking at and using the data. And again, that was a good education point for Michael and his team because they started to think of that too. And so now when they're coming with questions, they sort of already know, oh, well, we planned for this. It should be in the data. Is there a way to get to it? And we say, yeah, we thought a little bit ahead. You're not going to know all the answers, but you do have to sort of think beyond just this very small set of data that's going to answer this one question. Can we keep this, open for future modifications to answer more questions?
Great question. Can you stand up? Thanks.
You had mentioned the KPIs changing and things changing over time. Was there a way that you guys shared back like the governance of those KPIs and the definitions? And was there like a page in the dashboard or something that you clicked out to that helped everybody know when they looked at a metric what it actually meant?
Yes. So we had a project team, and then we had a steering committee. Those audiences aren't necessarily active users of the dashboard, but there was on one of our team SharePoint sites shows kind of the goals for the crawl, walk, run phases, what needs to be achieved at a high level, knowing your audience, kind of not getting too far into the weeds, and what needs to be achieved to try to simplify it. We didn't want to overcomplicate, and we still try to not overcomplicate anything that's a front-end user experience with the high-level strategy, because at the end of the day, we want this to be useful, and our KPIs of having a certain number of percentage points reached or some of these other things are important, but it's not important to everyone. So we try to make it easy so that if we don't have those somewhere else, we can pull it and add it there, but to keep kind of separation to not overcomplicate this experience.
Just to add to that, so Michael mentioned the SharePoint site. So that it's a little bit of a different topic, but there was a launch plan for this, right? And that included sending people to this SharePoint site first, so they saw a lot of that information before they even got to the dashboard. We've skipped over that part because it's, that's more of a marketing conversation. But we had a launch plan that involved training, taking them to this SharePoint site. That's how they get access to the dashboard. Once they're pretty comfortable, I'm sure most of them have now bookmarked it and they just go directly, but they did have to go through a little bit of an education before they got there that included some of that information.
And that education never changes because people change roles, people get hired on, people leave. So, that learning site in that, who am I? What do I need to know? What do I need to do? What am I expected to achieve? Depending on the role you have in this process, and there are different roles in the process, have different ways. So we've really tried to, again, going in the marketing side, the communication side, we try to go to where the people are, not make them always go to where we are with things. So there's kind of an omnipresence approach or omni-channel approach for a lot of these things in the different touch points where these individual personas or audiences live, to bring them in to find what they need.
We have time for maybe one more question.
I got one over here.
Yep.
So given the emphasis on the data, both internal and external, in the cohorts as part of that process, I'm surprised you guys didn't mention anything about Gen AI or large language models as part of the, not predictive side, but just kind of the part of the model in general. Is that part of the maturity in the future?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
definitely part of the maturity. So from the third-party vendor standpoint, that was one of my biggest questions when I was with them this week, is, where are you looking? What's coming? And they showed examples of how they are embracing it there. And then on the Eaton side, we also have a lot of AI-driven projects taking place right now that we will then embed. One example, so I talked about different channels. With any system, you need customer support. So we have a Viva Engage, anyone that's not in Microsoft products, it's kind of like Facebook groups, kind of. So we have a user group for anyone that is involved with this process. You can go there, you can ask questions. Well, another project I was working on, we were able to bring in some AI into this group. So now we have the capability of, it now collects all of the answers that someone asks and then surfaces answers. And then we go in and we can fix those answers, but it is reducing our human response time, because now, how do I find the dashboard? It will pop it up, here it is, and provide a link. So and that is all kind of user generated from the community itself through the AI that's built into that Microsoft experience.
And I think from the data side, what's important is, I mentioned there's still a lot of work we can do to automate some of this, right? It's still a little bit spreadsheet driven, manual work. It's very much from the data side, still a proof of concept. And so now we're able to use the dashboard, the usage metrics to say, hey, some of these things we're still doing in a very manual way, and making the case, to IT. Can we get this into, a data warehouse? Can we automate some of this? And so we're using that. So that's sort of step one. I'd love to just not have any spreadsheets involved before we start thinking about Gen AI and any sort of machine learning, because we're not there on the data side yet, but I think we're getting closer now. Great.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate
you.
it. We'll be around if you have any questions.